"What the hell did you do to my car?" That was the first thing I heard that morning, right before I took another sip of coffee and watched the golden sunrise paint across what used to be a $200,000 Lamborghini. The kid stood there barefoot, his voice cracking between rage and disbelief, and all I said was, "Some boundaries you teach," because that's exactly what this was, a lesson one his mother should have taught him years ago. I'm Sterling Caldwell, 56, retired carpenter widower, and the only guy in this neighborhood who still believes lawns mean something. 8 years ago, my wife Sarah and I poured that driveway ourselves, her laugh echoing through the summer heat while we smoothed out the concrete. She called it our signature. "Precision is love made visible," she'd said, and every time I see that line of perfect gray, I still hear her voice. Then came the Suttons. Deline Sutton, the HOA queen herself, and her spoiled 20-something son, Breen. The kind of people who treat everyone else's property like background decoration for their own little kingdom. One Tuesday morning, I'm sipping coffee on the porch when I hear a V10 engine screaming through a quiet suburb like a chainsaw through silk. That yellow Lamborghini cut across my front lawn like it owned the place, leaving twin black gouges 15 feet long. Just grass, right? That's what he said later when I knocked on their door. He opened it in a tank top and basketball shorts, eyes half awake, that trust fund smirk plastered across his face. "Dude, it's just grass. Chill." I was in a hurry. Then his mother appeared, silk robe mug that said, "Good vibes only." Eyes sharp as glass. "Oh, Mr. Caldwell," she purred. "Boys will be boys." I wanted to scream. Instead, I thanked her. Old habits die hard. The next morning, same time, same roar, the car came again, cutting through my lawn like clockwork. Day after day, the grass tore apart while the HOA chairwoman sipped coffee and smiled from her window. So I documented. Photos, videos, measurements, every track, every gouge. I sent them a certified letter signed and dated. The postal clerk even raised an eyebrow. "The Suttons again," she said. That told me all I needed to know. But when I brought it up at the HOA meeting, Deline shut me down in front of everyone. "Our covenants don't prohibit crossing lawns, Mr. Caldwell. Maybe you should relax or build a fence." People averted their eyes. Nobody spoke. Everyone feared her. I walked out of that room feeling smaller than I had in years. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself if maybe she was right. Maybe I was making a mountain out of a lawn. Maybe I'd turned bitter since Sarah passed. For the first time, I thought about giving up, just letting the grass die, selling the house, leaving the HOA circus behind. But then I looked at the driveway. Sarah's driveway. The one we'd poured by hand, inch by inch. And I remembered what she'd said, "Don't let people walk over you just because it's easier than standing up." The next day, I found my way to a local coffee shop and met with an old HOA lawyer named Langford, a quiet man with courtroom eyes. I laid everything out, the photos, the videos, the letters. He studied them like blueprints, then nodded. "You've done everything right," he said. "If law enforcement won't act, you still have one option: civil self-help remedy. Property owners can take reasonable action to stop ongoing trespass, as long as it's reversible." "Reasonable?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "You're a carpenter, right? You know how to take things apart." That night, I made a plan. Step 1. Install new warning signs. Private property. No trespassing violators will be prosecuted. Step 2. Send one final letter certified and signed. Step 3. If they cross again, act. 3 days later, the Lamborghini came roaring through like a victory lap. He even filmed himself doing it. I downloaded the footage, timestamped it, added it to my binder. Then I went to my garage. You can learn a lot from 40 years of working with your hands, like how every joint, every bolt, every connection can be undone cleanly if you take your time. I laid out my tools: hydraulic jack socket set, torque wrench. Not for destruction, for demonstration. 2 a.m. The street was silent. The same spot, same car parked arrogantly under a dead streetlight. I rolled my cart over the asphalt, slow and steady. Every sound felt deafening, but no one stirred. First, the wheels, 4 alloy circles loosened in perfect sequence labeled bagged. Then the seats, carbon fiber and leather lighter than air. Mirrors, bumpers, exhaust tips, all removed gently, not a scratch on them. I worked like I was building a cabinet in reverse. Careful, deliberate, legal. By 3:45, the Lambo sat bare on its rotors, stripped of everything that made it impressive. I arranged the parts neatly on their front lawn, 4 tires forming corners, seats facing each other like conversation chairs. The bumpers leaned like walls of a sculpture. In the middle, a laminated note, vehicle components removed under civil remedy. All parts will be returned upon cessation of trespass. S. Caldwell. I took photos, every angle time-stamped, and went home. Made coffee, waited for sunrise. At 6:32, the scream came. Breen sprinted out in his boxers, voice breaking. "You took apart my car. I didn't move. I sent you a letter," I said calmly. "You signed for it. I warned you what would happen." He shouted something about calling the cops, and I said, "Please do." DeLine appeared next, storming up the sidewalk in silk and fury. "You'll regret this. Sterling, I'll sue you into the ground." Minutes later, patrol cars pulled in, one young officer I recognized and another older man with stripes on his sleeve. Sergeant Vaughn. He looked at the disassembled car, then at me. "Mr. Caldwell." "That's me," I said, handing him my binder. He flipped through it, silent photos, videos, certified receipts. He took his time. When he finished, he closed it gently and said, "This is an unusual one. This is an Behind him, DeLine was shouting about vandalism, screaming for an arrest. The sergeant turned to her, voice steady as bedrock. "Ma'am, your son committed repeated trespass after formal legal warning. Mr. Caldwell's actions are reversible, documented, and within state property law. That's not vandalism, it's self-help remedy." The whole neighborhood had gathered by then. Curtains fluttered. Phones came out. Ramona, the elderly neighbor who'd seen it all, stepped forward. "He's telling the truth. That boy's been tearing up his lawn for weeks. Sterling tried everything before this." For the first time, DeLine's mouth went slack. Breen just stood there, color drained, watching his art installation gleam in the sunlight. Sergeant Vaughn faced him. "You're going to reassemble that vehicle and stop driving on this man's property. Next time, I'll be the one filing trespass charges against you. Do you understand?" The kid nodded, silent. When they left, the street felt lighter, like the air itself exhaled. I went inside, poured another cup of coffee, and watched through the window as mother and son gathered up the parts in shame. By noon, the photos had hit the neighborhood app when you mess with the wrong neighbor. By evening, local pages were calling it Lambo karma. I didn't post any of it, but I couldn't stop it either. 2 days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. For once, the room was full, every neighbor there, eyes sharp. One by one, people stood and spoke. About unfair fines. About Deline's favoritism. About how she protected her own while punishing everyone else. When Ramona stood up, her voice was steady. Sterling Caldwell did everything by the book. He followed the law. We failed him. The vote to remove DeLine was nearly unanimous. She sat frozen as it passed 28-5. No apology, no excuses, just the sound of her gavel dropping for the last time. I walked home under the streetlights, the same path where the Lamborghini used to roar. It was quiet now, finally, mercifully quiet. My lawn still bore the scars, but they'd heal. Scars always do. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, and looked at Sarah's driveway. Clean. Perfect. Untouched. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired and maybe for the first time in months at peace. Because in the end, justice isn't revenge. It's boundaries respected.